They wake up to the sound of sirens. Not birds, not laughter, sirens. The sky is no longer blue, it's a threat. A neighbor's home might be gone, a friend's family may have disappeared overnight. And still, they must get dressed, eat breakfast if there is any, go to school if it hasn't been bombed, smile if someone is watching. This was the reality for millions of children during World War II. To grow up in a war is to learn fear before you fully understand the world. You learn that safety is temporary, that adults, the people who are supposed to protect you, are sometimes powerless, and that life can end abruptly and there is nothing you can do about it. And yet, children adapt. They survive. Psychologists who studied this generation call them the war child cohort. Their minds were shaped not by playgrounds, cartoons, or carefree summers, but by air raid shelters, ration lines, and whispered conversations behind closed doors. Some researchers describe a dual imprint on their psyche. The first is hypervigilance. The world is dangerous. You must notice everything. The smallest sound could signal a threat. The smallest gesture could save you. The second is resilience, because in the same war you learn that you can endure more than you imagined, that survival is possible even when fear is constant. These two forces, fear and resilience, form the backbone of an entire generation. Imagine school. You sit at a desk trying to learn fractions while rationing tickets clatter in your pocket. Your mind is half on lessons, half on whether your next meal will be enough. Playgrounds are not safe. Soldiers patrol streets. Bombs fall unpredictably. Yet children still find ways to laugh, to play, to hide from the adults who are panicked but still trying to act normal. Humor becomes a shield. Imagination becomes a sanctuary. One of the most remarkable psychological traits in this generation is practical thinking. They grew up needing to solve problems constantly: how to stretch a loaf of bread, how to keep a coat from wearing out, how to avoid being noticed during an air raid. These children became adults who are meticulous, resourceful, and extraordinarily self-reliant. Some of their peers call it frugality. Psychologists call it adaptive problem solving, ingrained from childhood stressors. There is also a deep sensitivity to authority. They learned early that rules can save you, but rules can also be broken or ignored at the cost of lives. They watch authority carefully. They follow it when it makes sense, but skepticism is always quietly present. This is one reason many grew up to be thoughtful, questioning adults, even if they seemed outwardly compliant. War teaches loss at a young age. Parents, neighbors, pets, possessions, gone. And it teaches anticipation of loss. Psychologists call this persistent uncertainty. Children absorb it. They expect things to disappear. They prepare for endings before they happen. As adults, this cohort often exhibits a strong sense of practical caution, but also emotional reserve. They love deeply but carefully. They plan, but they rarely take unnecessary risks. Yet, the psychological imprint isn't all fear and caution. It also produces extraordinary empathy. These children saw suffering up close: hunger, illness, grief, displacement. They learned to recognize fear in others, to help quietly, to notice small needs. Some researchers suggest that this generation became profoundly aware that life is fragile and kindness is powerful. Think about relationships. People who grew up in World War II often carry a different sense of trust and intimacy. Trust is earned, not given freely. Promises are kept seriously. Words are weighed. They know how quickly stability can collapse, so they protect it fiercely when they have it. Love, friendship, family, they are anchors in a world that once made them feel adrift. Many war children also grew up with heightened emotional control. Expression of panic or grief was often dangerous or socially discouraged, so they learned to contain emotions, to manage them carefully, to avoid burdening others with distress. This emotional regulation often becomes a defining adult trait: calm under pressure, thoughtful in crises, composed in chaos. It is not suppression, it is learned discipline, born from survival. Yet the shadows of early trauma do not entirely disappear. Some carry subtle anxiety, hypervigilance, or insomnia well into adulthood. Some experience intense worry over security, finances, or health. Many cope by emphasizing routine, stability, and preparation, sometimes to the point of rigidity. This is why psychologists stress understanding this cohort through empathy, not judgment. Food, for example, has profound significance. Rationing taught them scarcity. Eating well became a privilege. As adults, many war children are careful about waste, frugality, and efficiency. It's not cheapness, it's a memory etched into the nervous system. Scarcity and plenty do not last equally. Community is another defining factor. Even in terror, families, neighbors, and small acts of solidarity mattered immensely. Sharing food, warning of danger, sheltering strangers, these became the social glue that carried children through extreme uncertainty. As adults, many war children often value practical community over performative social connections. Education, work, and responsibility also take on a distinct meaning. Many who survived the war as children became adults who work diligently, value responsibility, and avoid frivolous risk. They were forged in a crucible where inaction could have deadly consequences. This instilled a lifelong respect for diligence, planning, and self-reliance. Yet they also carry remarkable creativity. Play became improvisation. Toys were scarce. Imagination became the medium for adventure. Adults who survive this childhood often excel at problem-solving, storytelling, and innovation, precisely because they were trained to imagine beyond scarcity. Some war children developed a quiet skepticism toward propaganda, hype, or social trends. They had witnessed messages twisted to manipulate, to mislead, to control. As adults, this leads to critical thinking, cautious optimism, and selective trust. By the 1950s and 60s, this generation began to rebuild the world. Economies recovered slowly, homes were rebuilt painstakingly, and social structures were restored. Those who had been children during the war carried lessons of resilience, pragmatism, and empathy into everything they touched. Family life, in particular, became sacred. They nurtured their children carefully, sometimes overcompensating for their own losses. Some overprotective tendencies are rooted in memories of uncertainty and danger. Yet at the same time, the emphasis on responsibility, duty, and honesty shaped profoundly stable households. In old age, the psychological imprint becomes even more visible. War children are often reflective, quietly proud of survival, and profoundly aware of life's fragility and value. Some are introverted, others gregarious, some anxious, some serene, but almost all share a deep respect for endurance, human decency, and practical wisdom. And yet they are sometimes misunderstood by younger generations. They may seem stubborn, cautious, or resistant to change. But it is not mere personality, it is a lifetime shaped by necessity, fear, and adaptation. They teach a subtle lesson. Life is precious, fleeting, and fragile. Joy is real, but must often be earned. Love is powerful, but requires commitment. Time is a gift, but must be spent wisely. If you look closely, the psychology of war children is visible in small things: the careful way they plan meals, the seriousness with which they approach commitments, the patience they show to younger generations, the stories they tell, not loud but resonant with memory. By understanding the war child generation, we learn about the human capacity for resilience. We learn about adaptation under extreme stress. We learn that trauma, when survived, can leave both scars and extraordinary strengths. We learn that childhood shapes life more than any classroom. And we learn that memory is not just personal, it is cultural, social, and enduring. Even today, the lessons they carry are invaluable. Patience in uncertainty, courage in fear, resourcefulness in scarcity, compassion in loss, persistence in rebuilding. This is the psychology of those who grew up in World War II, not defined solely by fear, not defined solely by survival, defined by the balance between both. And when we sit with them, listen to them, observe them, we see something extraordinary: a quiet strength, a deep empathy, a mind shaped to endure, and a heart shaped to care. They remind us that the human spirit is both fragile and incredibly durable, that childhood shapes the person, but resilience shapes the soul, and that even in the darkest years, life can be lived, survived, and ultimately rebuilt.